of ruined crops, 3 years of fading hopes gone with a blasting wind, 3 years of mounting worries for men, women, and children. Savings dwindling, not enough income for the needs of life, none for taxes. What to do? For the 1000th time, Ed Casey racks his brain through the vicious circle which leads to nowhere. He can't stay here and continue to lose. He can't go elsewhere without losing everything. Then one day a Forest Service official called on Casey and told him that Uncle Sam would help him build windbreaks of trees to protect his fields and crops. You know, said he, other parts of the country have hazards too. The rich valleys of the Ohio and the Mississippi are susceptible to damage by floods. These great plains are susceptible to damage by wind. And just as levees help to make the river valleys safer for crops and life, so shelter belts of trees will help to make a vast number of prairie farms more secure for crops and life. A substantial part of the nation's best soil is on the tens of thousands of farms in sections of the prairie states, where trees will grow if properly planted and cared for, and where the effect of tree strips in conserving moisture and in preventing soil erosion may spell the difference between success and failure. True, the destructive action of the wind is greatest in years of severe drought, but hot, dry winds in any year may damage or even ruin unprotected crops. Everyone who has sought the lee of a building on a windy day has been relieved by its shelter. The building has checked the velocity of the wind. Shelter belts of trees prevent the blowing away of soil and seed, store up moisture, and lessen evaporation on protected fields because shelter belts check the velocity of the wind. Casey had tried planting trees, hundreds of them, without success. He doubted that they could be made to grow on his farm. But he listened with increasing interest as the forest officer pointed out that, unlike Topsy, successful windbreaks do not just grow. Their success depends on applying to the problems of the prairie the organized knowledge of forestry gained by long experience. Doubtful though he was that the trees would grow, Casey decided that the plan was worth trying. He signed the agreement to have the Forest Service plant his windbreak. Doubt has been transformed to faith. In 5 brief years, Casey's first shelter belt has become an established woodland, with trees as tall as 30 feet. It is protecting cultivated fields. A second shelter belt, parallel to the first and a quarter of a mile east of it, was planted a year after the first one. It is already giving valuable protection to other fields. A third belt, now in its second year, joins the 2 east and west belts on the south. This younger belt, of course, requires more cultivating than the older ones, but like them, will require less and less each year as the branches of the trees begin to interlock and forest conditions prevent the growth of weeds. Cultivation during the early years, however, is very important. Of the 11,000 miles of Shelterbelts planted on 18,000 Prairie States farms during 5 years, only 2% have been failures. Failures caused chiefly by neglect to cultivate. For example, this weed-ridden belt is only a quarter of a mile from a belt of luxuriant growth. Both were planted at the same time with all conditions similar except cultivation. Farmers in general take pride in keeping their tree belts in the best possible condition. They are interested, too, in the protection which the trees give cattle in the winter, lessening the energy consumed in fighting cold winds, hence reducing the food required and resulting in more profit. Interested, too, in the pheasants, partridges, quail, and other insectivorous and game birds, which thrive even in the younger belts. The rate at which shelter belts are gaining in favor is amazing. Hundreds of farmers familiar with local conditions are serving on committees to encourage tree planting in their communities. State forestry departments, county agents, and the Forest Service cooperate with them. In some communities, the tree belts on different farms are already joined together in a way which provides mutual community benefits. This growth of popularity is the natural result of the growth, survival, and benefits of the plantings themselves. Varying as it does with the length of the growing season in different sections, the record is one to inspire enthusiasm. Think of the wonder of such a belt as this, where in 4 brief years, seedlings, which were no larger than one's little finger, grew to trunks of over 20-inch circumference. These trees developed so rapidly that in the 5th year, some of them were removed in order to give the remaining ones more room in which to grow. The trees removed made several hundred posts, a good dividend for the farmer. This little 5-year-old giant measured 38 feet 8 inches in height. Farmers are becoming tree conscious in the Prairie States. Success of the shelter belts has increased their demands on commercial nurseries for fruit, shade, and ornamental trees. This farmer, who has 2 of the shelter belts, recently set out over 1,000 fruit trees purchased from a commercial nursery. Nursery catalogs intrigue Mrs. Casey and her daughters. The Caseys have planted fruit trees in the yards where Mrs. Casey feeds the chickens and the turkeys. The whole Casey family has a new outlook on life. The near tragedy of the past is forgotten in the joy of the present and in the promise of the future. The family can now enjoy a picnic in the attractive arbor already formed in the 5-year-old shelter belt. One of the boys slips out to the windward side of the belt to show how strong the wind is. Then he goes directly across to the lee side to show how the belt has checked the wind. The Caseys have indeed many reasons to be proud and happy. But for a farmer with crops to harvest, picnics must not interfere too much with work. And Casey has the crops.